Paras at that time, it was called Paras. Everything becomes absolutely perplexing and just it loses its meaning and significance altogether. So our philosophy is this, that God has always been giving light to his mankind, and that light has always been in reference to the capability of those people and the stage of their development. It has always been relative. Both the path, that is being, the way, and the light, they have never been absolute. Because despite the fact that God is absolute, the recipients have not been absolute. So those who are not absolute, they cannot conceive what is absolute. Because the giver of light is far greater in grandeur and almost limitless. Or almost, no, definitely limitless. And we are, whatever our position be compared to him, would always remain limited. It is like going to the ocean with a pail for getting water. You may carry a big pail or a small pail. Ocean would fill it to the brim anyway. So the size of the pail is going to determine how much water you get, not the size of the ocean. Not that if you go to the Atlantic Ocean, your pail will be filled half, and if you go to the Pacific, it will be filled full. Even go to the smallest of seas, it can fill the entire pace of the universe and still it won't get exhausted. So this is the relationship between the light of God and the human beings which are recipients of that light. At every age, the measure has been different, but perfection has there been, always, without exception. Because perfection in that sense is in relation to man's maximum ability. And he has always been treated with equality with Allah, by Allah, that is, his creator. If your capacity was big, you were given the full measure. If your capacity was small, you were given the full measure. So the equality means full measure. But the quantity would differ, of course, according to your own capacity. So this is how God has been revealing to all the people on earth at different times. This is the first phenomenon that we observe. And that is light, and that is the way. Second thing which we observe is this, that the moment the light appears and the way is open, people begin to reject it, or reject them, both the light and the way. In fact, they are one and the same thing. Two words are used for the one single entity, that is, whatever leads to God. So people reject and become extremely cruel in their treatment of the new truth. They suppress it as best as they can, and they reject it in totality and deride and mock at it and whatever they can. The treatment is most cruel. But once they begin to accept, the pendulum goes to the other side. First of all, a total rejection. They call them subhuman. They don't accept them equal in humanity to begin with. For instance, Christ himself, peace be upon him. They said, look here, you say you are that. What we find you is quite a different thing. We find that you don't have a right to legitimacy. You are an illegitimate son to our information. So you are not even son of man. Why are you claiming to be son of God? That was the outlook of the people of his time. And once they began to believe in him, the other end of the pendulum, they said, no, he was not son of man, he was son of God himself, literally speaking. So this is the same phenomena observed everywhere in the world. Not a jot of change will be observed anywhere. The first phase of total rejection, the second phase of lifting the position and preparing oneself for rejecting the second expression of light, the second manifestation of light. Now, in this same phenomena, the seed of rejection of the coming prophet is sown. How? I'll explain. First, because you belong to Christian religion, so you will better understand the whole thing in reference to Christianity itself, obviously. Christ was rejected, as I explained, and as I have told you, he was not accepted as a human being at par with the rest of the human beings. He was said to be something below. So why should they bow their heads to something subhuman? It was a natural probability. If the claim was correct, then the course of action they took was naturally justified. Christ said, you follow me. And they said, look here, you are not even a human being, accepted by society, with full legal human rights, because we see you as illegitimate. So, why should we follow you? That was a very sound reason, if the first claim was correct, which was wrong, of course. Once they began to believe in him, they said, look here, still we don't believe in a human being. We have not bowed to a human being. We have bowed to something who is superhuman, who is above the status of a human being. So their pride is still not injured. They have accepted with this justification that we have not bowed to a man, we have bowed to the Son of God. So because that is imaginary, that lifting of the station from the reality, next time he cannot appear exactly in the same manner. The next time he appears, he would again appear as a man, as a humble one. So enough reasons have been collected already by the followers of Christ to reject him when he next appears. Because the concept of the first Christ has been distorted, he has been raised from his reality to a myth. So the next time when he comes as a reality, not as a myth, because prophets always come as realities, he would be rejected often. They would say, look here, we saw you, believed in you not as a man, as a son of God. And now you come as a man and tell us that you are the same thing? Go ahead. Do what you please, but we are not going to follow you. So this is the phenomena, in fact, which is common to every religion, every race, and every time. So the second question doesn't arise, I mean. If this is...
well, to me, it seems to be quite satisfactory. The other question is quite different, really. It's something... It doesn't have. It does not reflect my own beliefs. It's really a matter of discussion, as I said right from the start. It's the question of humanism as a religion, for instance. Yes, I tend to think. There are those who argue that it would be a far better religion, a far better kind of faith than the rest of the present faiths, as it were. Particularly when since the rest of the faiths are based on the idea of the existence of God, but the argument of humanism seems to be that with the world as it is, with so much suffering, with so much, cruelty of man to man, and so on and so on, a lot of catastrophes in the world, and then the God there cannot be a God.
Last one, eh? Give it tired.